It is time for our weekly visit with Midway football coach Joe Gillespie. Is week number 4. Mansfield at home at Panther Stadium. Yeah, they do have a home stadium on that gorgeous campus. And Joe Gillespie here in studio with me after the win against Rouse last week, 3-0. Mansfield, which has turned into over the last 10 or 15 years into a nice rivalry, either non-district, district, or in the playoffs with Midway and Mansfield as well. What do you see from them? And what, like, they can throw it. They got receivers, but their defense has struggled, but they can put up some points.
They can put up some points. And you know, again, I said this last week, that was a big win for us. We knew going into Leander Rouse, you know, Josh Mann and his staff do a tremendous job, and their kids play extremely hard. They had a big win the week before. And we needed a game like that. We needed to go in at halftime. And, you know, fortunately, we were able to score right before half, and then we were getting the ball first in the second half. We were able to cap on that. And, you know, you start to gain a little bit of a lead there with some cushion, but it was nice to go in at halftime and really have to strategize and make some adjustments, and then watch the kids come out and execute that stuff. You know, Greg George, I mean, he's been at Mansfield High for 20-plus years and has done a wonderful job. And obviously, just like you mentioned, there's a rich history between Midway and Mansfield High. And you know, this is a team that's going to present a big challenge to us, but I think we can present a challenge to them as well.
When you were at Stephenville all those years, you knew who their rivals were. You knew who the big games were against. You knew the history, being a part of it in many ways. So you knew who their rivals were. When you moved to Midway, you knew about their history, and you knew that they had made a couple of runs to the state championship and other nice runs too. Did you know anything about the rivalries? How long does that take to soak into your system?
Well, I think it was pretty easy to sit there and recognize that, you know, Midway Temple, that's probably going to be a big rivalry.
Absolutely.
And a storied one. And just, you know, Temple being so rich in tradition, Midway being so rich in tradition, and things of that nature. I really didn't realize the rivalry between Midway and Mansfield High. You know, I figured that out pretty quick. And so you can probably set all records to the side, you know, wins and losses and all that stuff. And when you go play a game like this, you know, it's kind of bragging rights for a year, but they're always going to be very competitive. And, you know, this is a non-district game. It really has no bearings on anything other than we want to roll into district with some momentum. You know, I talked to the kids this week. I'm not a big statistician. I don't really care too much about stats and rush yards and touchdowns and stuff like that, just as long as we win. And, you know, sometimes there's been really good wins and really ugly wins. And then there's really good, you know, we play good football, and, you know, you came up short, and then there's ugly football. But at the end of the day, you want the check mark up in the W column. But started kind of doing a little bit of history on us. And, you know, we were in the same shoes this time last year. We were 3-0 and stuff. And here we are again at 3-0, and here we are going up against the same opponent. And, you know, they handed us our first loss. It was a heck of a game. And, you know, but we needed to figure out ways to win. And it wasn't until later in the season we started figuring out some of those things, kind of like Temple. And, but I fully anticipated being a game like that. You know, we sat there and we talked as a team on Monday. You know, the last time Midway went 4-0 was in 2017, and they ended up with a 15-1 season. The last 15 years, Midway's been 4-0 only 3 times, and they went 15-1 in 17. They went 12-1 the time before that, and 13-1 the time before that. So it's a 40-3 record right now. So something about 4-0, we want to go 4-0 right now.
Absolutely, win is a win, and then set you into District 12 6A with Harker Heights, and to open up with home. So one of the other things about Mansfield, for a lot of people who are from Midway know, Jeff Hume was there.
Yeah.
Then he takes the job at Midway.
Yeah.
That kind of added a little spice to it. Now he's at Legacy. I always think about Mansfield. I think of Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah.
As a guy that coached at a great level in high school, and then also what you did in college as well. He had a monster game. Of course, we ended up being – never really did much at the NFL level, injury, but he was a great – at Mansfield, he ran for nearly 400 one time against Midway. What do you remember him as you saw him and heard about him? And probably I would like to have had him as a running back where you were.
Well, there's no doubt. You know, unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to sit there and go head to head with him. But just, you know, I mean, that's that's a legend, that's a legacy, you know, and what those guys did. And I can remember when, you know, and this has been a good minute right now. So, you know, but Stephenville, I grew up in Stephenville. I coached at Stephenville for a long time. But I grew up there. That was my hometown. And, you know, in my younger years, junior high, early high school, Mansfield and Stephenville played each other all the time. And that was, I can remember early in junior high and high school thinking, man, this is the meanest, biggest, baddest bunch of dudes I've ever been around. And I mean, when you played that game, you walked out of it knowing you played in a game. Yep. And I've always had an immense amount of respect for them, and stems all the way back to that time.
One other thing about non-district, with this being the last one, I think Sean Hunt told me this, that you and Coach Mann have a great respect for each other.
Sure.
They're a 5A school, but they're really good. Is that something where you already have looked at maybe keeping them on your schedule next year? Or is it too early for that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're already looking for games, and you know, Midway is not a lost ball in high weeds and stuff. And so, you know, finding some games is a little bit more difficult right now. I remember, you know, without going into depth, it didn't take me too long to fill the non-district schedule, and that's upsetting. And so we want it to be a little bit more challenging, and we're getting to face some of that right now, and that's a good thing. That's you know, says a lot about our program, the growth of our kids, our sub-varsity programs, people knowing about them and hearing about them. And but Coach Mann and I talked after the game, immediately after the game, and regardless of classification, these are two really good football teams that can service a lot of your sub-varsity programs, and they're going to be, you know, two just blue-collared programs that are going to come out and you know, win or lose, you're going to gain a lot from this game. And I think, you know, we gained a lot from it. I also think Coach Mann gained a lot from it. And I think we certainly agreed to sit there and say, hey, let's make it a game, and we need to keep this going. So it looks like we're going to play game one next year.
You have dealt with injuries. And then last week at this time, you had just learned about Jaden Fields-Vaughn and the foot, which it appeared at the time when you and I spoke that you weren't sure yet, but it could have been like lengthy out.
Sure.
He was in a walking boot prior to the game. He is back this week. Obviously,
yes,
Lathan is the dog, the alpha.
Yes,
but he obviously gives you a different feel, too, and explosiveness. You dodged a bullet with that injury. Or
we certainly did. We certainly did. And I mean, just the way the two complement each other and the duo that they bring. And you know, to go without that, I thought a lot of guys picked up the slack, and, you know, obviously Lathan and stuff, and did a phenomenal job. And, you know, thank goodness, the football gods are still shining upon us a little bit.
Yeah, you've had some other guys that it's not as good news, but you're getting some of the cavalry back.
We're getting some of it back. You know, Jackson Garcia is going to play this week, who we were afraid might be out for 5 to 6 weeks. You know, Hudson King, we really still don't know when he's going to be back. But he has started, you know, doing some mobility work and running and things of that nature. And, you know, he doesn't feel anything. Obviously, with the broken collarbone, that's probably the most common broken bone and probably the most common refracture bone. So we want to make sure that he's 100% healthy when we get him back.
Yeah, I had that my senior year. It wasn't broken. It was fractured. It hurt. They put a big neck roll on me and large shoulder pads, and that they said go out and get it. That was old school. You just spit on it, right? All right. So you have this game. You got your third, fourth week coach's voice now, don't you?
Yes, sir, I do.
You got
a little bit of pollen in there.
Mine's
too.
always kind of got this little, I don't know what it's called, but I do know that when you get into late September, the weather does change slightly, or at least for a couple of days, and then you start to battle that. I asked you this earlier this week, but it was on for the radio broadcast. What's the identity of your football team?
You know, I think we're still trying to create it, and you know, but I will sit there and say I think part of our identity is blue collar, and we're always going to be a blue collar program, and you know, it's a gritty bunch that's willing to sit there, but and go through some things, and we're going to have to be that way. The one thing that's really sticking out to me right now is this is a program, a football team that does not panic. And, you know, we've been in some certain situations, not a lot of them, but we were in some certain situations the other night. We've had to go out on the field. You know, we played 3 games. We've already had to take our hands team out twice. And And we pour a lot of emphasis into our special teams. I think our IQ, this is a team that I think other teams are going to look at and say, listen, they understand football. And their kids are in tune with everything that they're doing in all phases of the game, from offense and defense to special teams. And when you start talking about special teams, there's so many facets to the special teams, from kickoff to KOR to game-saving kickoff to, a hands team, an onside team, a punt block team, a punt return team, a fake team. There's so many things. And then you start talking about your extra points and field goal blocks and your gates and everything that your trickery,
hold, et cetera. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you nowadays, to play at this level, at any level, you have got to be an intelligent young man. And, lining up 22 guys in between the hashes like you and I grew up in and just play slobber knocking football, that's kind of out of the game. And so, these kids, they understand football. They don't panic. They don't panic under pressure. They love playing the game, and I think that's a big part of it. They enjoy going out on Friday nights. I can tell you right now, we are so excited. Our kids are so fired up to be at home, play on our home turf, get in front of our fans, and SRO, standing room only atmosphere, and against a great opponent, and try to get a big win before we go into district.
Such a beautiful place to watch broadcast or be at a game, play at a game. Of course, your student section is raucous.
I know.
Fun,
I love it.
And they get into it as well. So the first home game, our kickoff is at 7 o'clock, 6:30 pregame, Mansfield and Midway. We'll have it on 106.7 FM, the Eagle, also the internet line, and Midway ISD, the TV group that does such a great job too. Good to see you.
Good to see you, David.
Joe Gillespie, Midway football against Mansfield this Friday. This is 365 Sports.